as a mental exercise, it brings you there. It puts you in the seat.
Mm-hmm.
You can't run the marathon right away, so practice smaller lengths, distances,
Oh,
and go ahead and paint a Van Gogh color by numbers, because you'll move your hand. You'll have to think so many thoughts of mixing color anyway. Absolutely, yeah. There's so much
mm-hmm.
value in that.
Jokes in the gym. Jokes in the gym. Not jokes in the gym. Jokes in the gym. Jokes in the gym. With Rudy Tyburczy.
Hey friends, it's Rudy. This is the podcast you're listening to, Jokes in the Gym. I'm stoked you're here, man, woman, person. It's a nice day. I'm happy to be around right now. It's been a good little vibe recently. I'm stoked that I am now working at the Y. I'm on the schedule, and that's a big thing I'm getting used to for sure. It's like, how do I live in a world where I don't make my schedule all the time now? And that's good. It's giving me the opportunity to work on the 3 things that I think are really important. That's balance, flexibility, and strength, baby. Both in the gym and out of it. If I can just focus a little more on my own balance, flexibility, and strength, my life will be better. And I'm excited to kind of like take that focus, center it in my mind, and try to apply it to all walks of life. Not just comedy, not just the gym, not just creativity, but my whole life. Because I look at stuff from a holistic sense, and I know how much everything impacts me. Like, just going from one thing to the next is a lot. It's hard. It takes time, energy, effort, commitment, focus, dedication, ability, stability, flexibility, all that stuff. And I'm excited to start working, to like work more. And it's okay that I might have an entry-level job in a new field, because I believe in the work of making my community better. I believe in helping other people around me get better and reach their goals. I believe in doing things that are hard and uncomfortable if it is in alignment with something that is dear and important and meaningful to you. So, yeah, that's where I'm at. And this conversation with Isaac today, oh my gosh, I love this conversation. It was a real blast to have, to get to know each other better, and it was wonderful to listen to as well. Isaac is a comedian, educator. His website is isaacparis.com. I introduced him as Isaac Being. That's his name on socials and online, and I think in the world. And he's a teacher here in town, a comedian, and he works as an art teacher in a high school, an alternative high school around here. So we really get deep into the creative process today, and we talk a lot about just our experiences with creativity, which is the pod in general. Yeah, we get into jokes. Yeah, we get into the gym. But I've been really enjoying and appreciating and allowing these conversations to kind of go wherever they might go. So I hope that you enjoy going along for the ride with us and listening to the soothing, dulcet tones of 2 friends in Eugene, Oregon, chatting about the creative process. I think it's pretty cool. So I thank you for stopping by, and I also want to thank my imaginary, non-existent, no way is real sponsor called Flibbity Flop Flugels. And if you ever want to get flugeled, don't forget Flibbity Flops. They'll flugel your flegel at the Flagest Flugel. So flig on up to Fliggity Flops. And now, with that, I'd like to welcome you to the conversation I had with the illustrious Isaac Being.
Right on. Okay, welcome everybody. Welcome to another episode of Jokes and the Gym with your host, Rudy Tyburczy. I'm super excited to have my guest here today. He is a fellow Eugenian. At the moment, at least, he may not be from Eugene, but he's a Eugenian now, right? Can we say you're Eugenian at this point? Does that work?
Been over 10 years, yeah.
Been over 10 years. Okay, cool.
Now
Well,
Eugene's
he's
my
a
home.
Eugenian. He's a comedian. Yeah, it's his home. He's a teacher. He's a visual artist. He does clown work. He produces variety shows. I'm super excited he's here. Put your hands together for Isaac Being. Yay! Did I miss anything, Isaac? We can move slightly in towards a conversation. Isaac, how's it going? How's your week been? How's your day going? How's your life?
I had spring break. It was so nice to have a week off from work. I really need that time to decompress, to work on my projects, to just waste some time, to just go on walks. And then, of course, when you're working 9 to 5, it's hard to get those meetings done or those errands where you need to go to stores and shops in town. So it's good to have days off occasionally so you can do those things.
100%. That's kind of been like the challenge for me. This week I worked 5 days in a row at a job for the first time in I don't know how long. And like my place was a mess and I can't find half the stuff I'm looking for. What do you find when you're trying to prioritize your life, or you get maybe a little behind? What do you find goes lower on the priorities list for you, and what kind of goes higher on it for you?
Well, I admit physical activity goes lower and cleaning up my own space goes lower. I think messes stack up, like you said.
Totally.
Having my dog helps me to remember to walk at least a little a day, though.
Well, that's great. I mean, that's one of the best parts of having a dog. I'm a cat guy, but I do love a dog. How old's your doggo?
Oh, getting pretty old, 11, maybe a little older.
Oh, big dog, little dog?
She's a medium-sized dog, 38 pounds.
Medium-sized dog, yeah. Oh, yeah, that's a dog. That's a dog, right? That's a nice-sized dog. I like that. That's like not too big. It's not going to yank your arm off, but it's got something there, right?
I do like the non-yanking my arm off aspect of her size, and she's perfect for the bed or the couch.
Oh, nice. Are you a dog in the bed person?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I haven't had a dog. I'm a cat in the bed person. My cat kind of decides how I'm going to sleep. And it's kind of sweet, you know, it's nice to have something with her to cuddle.
You never know with cats. Some like to be near you, and you never know when they're a kitten or when you adopt them, if they'll grow to like you or grow to stay in your bed with you. But yeah, I've had cats just sit at the foot of my bed like, I like to be near the human, but not touching the human.
Well, what I find with cats, and as these are like, I have some cats that I've had since they were born, and they go through different phases. It's like sometimes they'll be all up on the lap or very cuddly or very affectionate, and other times it's like they won't come near you unless it's 5:37 on the dot when it's dinner time. So yeah, this is Jokes in the Gym. I love the concept of just talking with my comedian friends about how they find balance in life, because so often it's not necessarily what we highlight. You know, it's something that kind of takes a back burner. How do you, just in general, in your life, attempt to find balance? Are there any things you do or any ways that you structure your time that kind of like leads to a more, balanced or fruitful week for you?
I'm a teacher and a visual artist, and sometimes I feel, oh, why go through this step again? I've done it so many times. If I'm teaching some lesson, and then I remember, oh, it's good to do the lesson again and again and again. And there's a value in it every time. I found myself kind of drawing a comic I've already drawn before, but I found new insight in the topic when I was making a little example for students recently. And I do printmaking with my students, so I like to do a project alongside them.
Yeah. That's cool. So like they'll be doing something and you're like leading by example. You're making your own version of it.
Yeah. I'm fortunate that I have small class sizes.
I have
we have a long class period time. So there is, if it's a 2.5 hour class, there is probably a half hour or hour in which I could really just focus on art, but I'm still there to talk to or ask questions of. What was that, Rudy, you have found?
For sure. Well, that's kind of a cool aspect of, I think we'd still have that lag a little bit, so we'll have to play catch up when we can. I love that idea of like creating in a group. I think that that's something that we don't really do. There's not a lot of that. And Leanne Jeshaway will here in town, she might put together a workshop now and again. She's taught classes. But the idea of teaching art, I've been a teacher as well. I've taught for 7 or 8 years in my life, spent thousands of hours in front of kids and students and adults of all ages. And I really love it. Do you find that teaching is something that, teaching art specifically, do you find yourself being able to define things clearly? Because that's one of the things I like about communicating and talking with you, is that I find it pretty easy to talk with you. You talk clearly and have a straightforward communication style that I appreciate personally. And in art, it can be so ethereal and such a vibes game. Do you find yourself knowing the answers when students have a question, or are you well, you kind of just do this?
Yeah, if they have a question about technicality, I usually have the answers, or we can find it quickly with Google. But what I thought of is I like to link things to what was going on culturally and historically. If I'm sharing examples of the Dadaists or other collage artists from the post-World War I era, just to remind them a little bit of the history of what was going on at the time. And that's fascinating that magazines emerged and newsprint emerged as a result of the Industrial Revolution, products to sell to the middle class who could afford them. And, so then they're inundated with ads, and ads came from war propaganda. We learned ways to manipulate emotions to convince people to do things or buy things. And then the artists are being postmodern and going, oh, let's subvert the goals of ads for artistic purposes. How can I manipulate your emotions? So yeah, I'm always trying to link things to the history through art.
That's so cool. When I went to Vietnam, it was at one of my favorite things to do was to find prints of old propaganda posters that they weren't propaganda in this harmful or aggressive way. I have one on my wall in there. It's 2 cats, and it's having cats is good for your crops. And that was just a poster that was around. And spreading knowledge like that, I think it's so cool. And that it was used in this artful, artistic, creative way. So that's kind of a cool thing about when the media or whatever, the art is controlled by the government. So I mean, it's so cool to play with the forms, okay, now make a prop. I guess you could give a prompt of make a propaganda poster for X, Y, or Z, that's spreading some message that you believe. If you had a poster that you yourself, Isaac, could create, what would your message be? Mine is cats are good for the soul and crops. What might Isaac's say? What would yours be?
I think of an example I made once for students was about the toilet paper roll. Should it be under or over? And it was it was in favor of over rolls, and saying that the heathens who roll theirs underneath don't deserve to breathe the same air as us, or something like that. But yeah, the word propaganda doesn't necessarily mean negative. You could have positive propaganda for sure.
Right, totally.
What country did you say your cat's one was from?
It was Vietnam, and I got a couple that were cool, and I kind of gave them out as posters or as gifts to people. That's one of my favorite things to do when I was traveling regularly, is get scarves or socks or little prints and give them out as gifts when I come back. It's so much fun.
Okay, so were these original antiques saved, or were they reprints intended to be sold to tourists? Yeah,
they were reprints, totally. Yeah, I don't have the kind of coin to buy originals. It's $12 for 3 of them or whatever. How long have you been a teacher? because I love teaching. It was a joy in my life. It was a very nice part of my adulthood, I guess, was teaching, and I'm still getting back into teaching. And what is it that you like about it, and what do you struggle with about it?
This is my 4th year at the school I'm at now, and I did 1 year before that at a middle school. But I've been a sub and an aide for longer, for like 15 years. So if you take the whole career. But good to have your own classroom.
What are some of the aspects that you really appreciate?
The constant challenge and the constant challenge to link things to their lives, or ask them what they are interested in and how can I kind of subtly manipulate them into making art out of that. It's cool when they share things with me that they like. I wish they did it more. But it can feel like pulling teeth sometimes, because it's like, oh, I don't want to be vulnerable and let the teacher know what music I like or what art I like.
It's so weird to me that so many people are just like, oh, well, this is the wrong answer. But when it's like a question of taste, or like your experience question, do you find students today, you work with high school students?
Did you say that there could be a wrong answer to a question of personal taste, and that's a wrong-headed perspective on that question?
Yeah, I've just I've seen in general younger people, so let's say people under 27, kind of have this phobia of like making a misstep, and I see it kind of hold a lot of people back from doing anything. I'm making missteps left and right, Isaac. It's like, it's crazy how many times I screw up, like on a day-to-day basis. And it's like, if I was afraid of not taking the right step forward, I wouldn't do anything. Do you find that students are paralyzed by that, or do you find that there is more of a freedom? You work in an alternative kind of high school. Do you find that students have a mindset of like, oh, I can just kind of try what I want? Or is it more like, I don't know, what should I do? Give me clear, straightforward answer.
The ones who succeed are the ones who take risks and try something, anything.
Totally.
And then there's some who, there's many reasons why they hold themselves back. And I just try to make the space welcoming and make it's okay to fail in here. And I've been more open to letting students throw their work away. I admit I had a feeling of, oh, it's a shame you put so much effort and art materials into that to just throw it away. But I'm trying to enlighten myself and just let go of those expectations of holding on to things. I'm a bit of a hoarder, and I don't need to push that onto my students. But I had an optimism of thinking, oh, your parents might enjoy seeing that before you throw it away. Or I like to look at the art I made 20 years ago, and I get a kick out of it. Maybe you will too.
Yeah.
But as I've been researching, I discovered that more famous artists destroyed their own work out of a sense of control. Maybe I don't want lower quality work by me out there, or I'm frustrated with this, it didn't turn out the way I wanted, so I'm destroying it. And so that was an example of, oh, the cool kids did it, or the significant artists did it in the past, Isaac. So you can let go of your expectation. Sometimes I sort of like steal students' work out of the trash to give it as an example to the students later, or just because I think it's personally neat.
Yeah.
And now I'm kind of thinking, oh, is that a violation of their consent? Maybe it is.
I mean, if you're like saying like, oh, this is Julie's work, she threw it away. but I mean, I as soon as you said students throw so much of their art in the trash, I'm like, oh, well, then you should have a trash art exhibition where it's just like a wall filled with all these pieces of people's art that they threw away, that they deemed that was unworthy for whatever reason. And I bet you the difference between that and some other exhibition would be fairly minimal.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Oh, I still have weird pictures that I like, paintings that I made in Mr. McNeely's art class and design too. You know what I mean? Like there's pictures I was drawing pictures of cats even as a high schooler, Isaac. Like it's in me. It's a part of who I am. And so it's fun to reminisce on that stuff.
Rudy, have you been to the all cat art store in Portland?
No, tell me about this magical place.
I have a favorite street, and it's Mississippi, and
Oh,
it has some
Mississippi.
restaurants, and it
Yeah.
has a synthesizer store, and it has Paxton Gate, which I love, and there's a store all about art of cats, cats art.
That is amazing. I cannot believe I haven't been there. That is first on my list of places to go in Portland next time I'm up there.
You can pick up stickers, paintings, sculptures, mugs, magnets. Do you already have an oven mitt with a cat on it?
Oh, it might not be. I have a different cat themed kitchenware. I will have to. What's it called? Do you know?
I could find it quick, but I don't remember. But I just went yesterday.
Did you get anything?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what'd you get?
I bought some cat stickers.
Yeah.
And a zine that someone wrote as a tribute to their dead cat, that they imagine that their ghost cat has adventures.
So can I tell you my book idea? I have one book idea. Well, I have several, but one of them is A Life in Cats. And if I tell this, I'm sure it'll show up on a shelf somewhere. But it's just me telling stories about all of the cats throughout my life. And then like chronological, it could be chronological, or I could play with that as well. But just like lessons learned, the way that I interacted with them. Because if you go through life, it's like, oh, I had this cat from ages 7 to 14, or I had this cat from ages 24 to 39. And it's like, that's a huge swath of life. And you're going to go through a lot.
Yeah, and I think the personalities of our pets influence us almost as much as the personalities of our friends and our parents and our siblings.
100%. I've got 4 cats that are my companions at this point, and they're all so unique. They all have such distinct personalities, and I get different things from all of them. And it's just really a joy to kind of like provide for them what they need and then allow their personalities to kind of display themselves naturally.
Mm-hmm.
It's so nice. Oh, well, that's so cool. Eugene just got a cat cafe recently. Did you hear about this? Have you heard about that?
No, I didn't hear about that.
Yeah, there's one. When living in Asia, there's cat cafes, there's dog cafes, there's friggin' raccoon cafes, meerkat cafes. In Japan, there's a capybara cafe, there's an owl cafe. There's all kinds of cafes in Asia, and we just got our first animal cafe. It could be weird, but it's kind of amazing also at the same time. Where is that place? Anyways, I could talk about cat cafes and cat art and
I'd
propaganda.
be interested in the capybara cafe, and I do tell my students, if you make your art that's a tribute to a specific animal, there's an audience, because there's people who love owls and turtles and elephants.
I mean, there's an audience for everything out there, and I think that this online and instant gratification society that we live in dissuades people from sticking with stuff, because as soon as something doesn't land exactly how you'd hoped, I think people just move on or give up or go on to the next thing. And it's like, I'm doing my 5-minute workouts and I love these things, but I have literally 0 subscribers, and I'm doing all this work for very little response. But I was like, you know what? These could be a cult sensation someday. There could be a bunch of people someday who are like, I want to work out for 5 minutes with this guy and his cats in the backyard. Like, that sounds like a fun thing to me. Am I crazy? Would people want to do that?
I've had a similar realization recently and thought, even if in my lifetime my work isn't appreciated, it's still worth it to make it, because you just never know. It's relatively unusual, but there are some artists who are appreciated more after their death than in their life. And I don't know. Is it that unusual?
I don't. It can't be that unusual. Van Gogh comes to mind, right?
Van Gogh comes to mind, yeah.
Oh yeah, and it's like, Abhishek, a fellow Eugene comedian, he is a visual artist as well, and he's just playing with mediums and turning them on their sides all the time, it seems like. And I just love this idea of different kinds of art influencing your comedy and your work. Do you
Yeah.
find that your artistic style, or how do you find that your artistic style influences your comedy?
Wow. It's something I've thought about. I was preparing an all comedy set about Dungeons and Dragons and Magic the Gathering,
Love
and
it.
trying to slip in a few World of Warhammer jokes as well. And I think it'd be great to do a set all about visual art, a
Yeah.
comedy set for artists.
Uh-huh.
Have you seen Stand Up for Drummers?
No, is that Armisen?
Yeah, yeah. And I think by naming it that, it sounds specific, but it's really just stand up for musicians,
Okay.
you know. But there's a lot of great humor in there about music.
About music. Yeah, I mean, you're gonna find people who are into it.
Mm-hmm.
They're gonna be there. And so it's like and that's what I try to do. I talk about what's alive for me. I want to talk about things that are interesting.
And you know who does a lot of jokes about visual art is Hannah Gadsby.
Oh, okay.
Have you listened to her specials?
I keep putting Nanette like on my list, and haven't gotten to it. And that's how it is with me. A lot of times when people are like, "Yeah, I gotta watch this. You gotta watch this. It changed my life." And I
She
have
talks
some.
about Van Gogh, Picasso, and about the Renaissance painters who the Ninja Turtles were named after. And I was initially disappointed. I was like, oh no, Hannah Gadsby's doing a joke about the Renaissance artists that the Ninja Turtles. I did too. But our jokes are
Uh-huh.
very different from each other, it turns out. So
Right. Totally. I mean, I've said this before, but I'll say it again. Everything's been said, but I haven't said everything. And so
mm-hmm.
that frees a block for me, because it's whenever like, oh, someone's like, oh, Carlin said that, Seinfeld did that. It's like, of course they did. Of course they talked about war, or of course they talked about pants. It's like, but I have a slightly different take on war and pants.
Mm-hmm.
So it's okay to put my spin on it. As long as it's you and you're talking about it, it's like, of course we're going to have similar ideas, but you just got to kind of put your own sheen on it. There's always space for it.
Yeah, but that can be exhausting to think of like, oh, I have to do so much research before I talk.
Yeah.
To avoid saying the same thing someone else has said already. I think some comics repeat jokes by others without realizing that they have. Like it goes in one ear and then it marinates for a while, and then they say a joke and they don't realize that they're actually quoting it pretty much verbatim. It's all right.
Yeah. It's like, oh, I just did a Bill Hicks bit. Oops.
Yeah. Oh, I love Bill Hicks. Fantastic observation.
And I think he's an easy one to slide into when you're like feeling angsty or like passionate about something, because he inhabited that so fully and so wholly as himself that it makes, I think, a listener who then becomes a comedian feel like, oh, it's like it's kind of like karaoke in a way. It's like,
yeah,
I just want to inhabit that space, but I'm not familiar with it, because when I try to go somewhere like an angry place on stage, it doesn't work for me. Like if I do something that's
I
not
never see
myself.
you angry.
I've been there. I've been there. I've had issues. It's been a thing that I've had to work on my whole life, is emotional regulation. I've always been a crier and a uber competitive person in the throes of competition. I played sports and did athletics and that kind of stuff, and was always very hard on myself. And I think the anger is often geared at myself for not being able to do what I want to do in that space, and so yeah, I just when I have gotten angry on stage, I'm like, ooh, that doesn't suit me. That doesn't fit well.
We can adapt that like metaphor of like karaoke for comedy also to drawing and songwriting.
Mm-hmm.
In that, like, we expect musicians to be original, and artists, like kid artists, think, oh, I can't copy someone else, but I think we all learn through copying.
Totally.
And you can make reproductions of great art and put your own spin on it.
Mm-hmm.
Or anytime you make a reproduction, a master copy, you're learning so much. So even if you were to go, oh, how would I tell jokes about this thing, even though I know David Cross or Patton Oswalt already told these great jokes about it,
Mm-hmm.
go ahead for the mental acuity, for the mental exercise.
What did I see? Who was it? Was it like Hunter S. Thompson who typed out The Great Gatsby just to
Wow.
feel what it was like to write a great book?
Wow.
Like, I may be getting the names wrong or the work. It might not have been Hunter and it might not have been Gatsby, but somebody well known just typed out another great book. And that's why I love like a joke book exercise, or my advice to a musician who may be on a writer's block is just do your Weird Al version of whatever artist is your favorite artist.
Yes, Weird Al, he'll do a song in the style of someone else, and there's a puzzle for you to figure out, and you're like, oh, I wonder who he's imitating here.
Mm-hmm.
Is he imitating AC/DC with Young, Dumb, and Ugly, or is it some other group that's along those lines?
Yeah.
Have you familiar with the artist Liam Lynch from Syphil and Ollie?
Yes, I love Syphil and Ollie. Oh my gosh.
He has an album with fake Bjork song, fake David Bowie song, and that's inspirational to me. And I've done myself tried to kind of make fake songs in the style of other people.
Even just the song for the podcast is very similar to the song Reggie Watts made for Pete Holmes' You Made It Weird. Just for this, the little jingle. It's like, okay, what's a 15-second jingle for a podcast that I appreciate that might have a similar vibe, right?
Yeah.
And so if you listen to mine and then you listen to Reggie Watts, which is obviously higher quality and what Reggie freaking Watts, there's still similarities. And
I've heard them both, and
yeah.
I didn't know that, but yeah, it makes sense now that you tell me.
Yeah, and so it's just fun to do that kind of stuff, to kind of kick yourself into gear sometimes. It's like, you got to fake it till you make it. And like, okay, you don't know what to do? Write The Great Gatsby. Literally sit down and start writing The Great Gatsby. You don't know what to do? Paint by numbers, Van Gogh. Do whatever.
Yeah. And as a mental exercise, it brings you there. It puts you in the seat.
Mm-hmm.
You can't run the marathon right away, so practice smaller lengths, distances, and go ahead and paint a Van Gogh color by numbers, because you'll move your hand. You'll have to think so many thoughts of mixing color anyway. Absolutely. Yeah. There's so much value in that.
Okay. Well, I think this was the longest intro segment I've had so far. Which I'm happy about. My favorite classes, I always said, were the ones where we didn't touch the lesson plan. And that kind of goes back to something we were talking about earlier, but like because at this point in my comedy journey, I'm at a place where I have a good 20 to 30 minute set that I like. All the jokes could be improved, right? All the jokes could be strengthened. I could move stuff around, but I got 20 to 30 minutes of material that I feel good with. But when you get in the zone of going through the act, it opens up. For me, it opens my eyes up, because I'm not just rote memorizing lines. I'm trying to inhabit the bits, but that gives me space to be in the moment and let my mind go to other places, knowing that I can get back on track afterwards, And so this idea of having something to fall back on is super helpful for artists, because I think as a creative type of person, I don't know about you, but for me, sometimes I feel like I'm faking it if I've done it before. Does that resonate with you?
Yeah, I'm trying to picture your metaphor. Like, there's a slow track in the background going, and you'll go from point A to point D, and you'll hit B and C along the way, but you give yourself the freedom to go around, to walk away, to come back. And then at the end of the show, hey, here's my point D. It links back to point A and B. And my show is over now, but no show is the same twice. I think that's the goal of a comedy show for sure.
Totally. Yeah. And a lot of times the biggest laughs will be when you take those side quests, when you're going into the cavern you didn't expect, or when you open it up for a little crowd work and whatever happens, happens. That's part of comedy now. So, but it's just so fun to have some prep there. So for me, that allows me to stand up a little straighter and say it with my chest.
Isn't that funny? The audience laughs harder or more, or like feel more in the moment when you seem to be making spontaneous observations right there. The improvisation.
Mm-hmm.
So the best stand-up show will include a bit of improvisation.
Totally. Are you a Scovel fan?
Now, who's that? Sorry.
Have you heard any of Rory Scovel's stand-up?
Oh no, I'm afraid not. I'm not.
Ooh, don't be afraid not. This is a gift I'm giving you. Rory Scovel, his special on Netflix is called Rory Scovel Tries Stand-Up for the First Time. It's hilarious. It plays with stuff, and he has a very improvisational style, as you can very clearly see in his next special, which was a YouTube special that was all done. He did a week of improvised shows in Atlanta. And this next special was like Rory Scovel Live Without Fear, I think is what it's called. And it's on YouTube. And it's like kind of documentary style, cut up from these 4 or 5 different shows that were totally improvised into a full special. And oh my gosh, if you haven't checked, he has a new special on Max. I haven't watched it yet, again, because it's like I just want to take a second before I dive into one of my favorite comedians' new stuff. But if you haven't seen Rory Scovel, Isaac, I think you would really get a kick out of this guy. He's just one of the best comics out there today.
Cool. I think of a guy, Ian Bagg. Ever heard of him? He came to Fairbanks and did 3 or 4 shows, and his show was 90% different every time. But I watched every show, and it was mostly reacting to the audience and making fun of them and talking to them. It was so masterful.
He's phenomenal. Ian Bagg is so quick on his feet, so amazingly just like clever and sharp and present with you. And Ian Bagg is a great crowd work guy. Another huge comic that I didn't realize was so good at weaving crowd work into his act is Bill Burr. And Bill Burr kind of lit that idea in my head of like, oh no, you put the material in, and then you have spots to play, or you put, the crowd work is done in a certain way. And just to see him do like an hour plus of material I had never seen. I saw him at a Mexican restaurant in a strip mall in Hong Kong. And it was so cool to just be in the second row watching him. I was there with a friend, and we just were laughing our asses off the entire time. And I'm not even a huge Bill Burr guy. He doesn't always resonate with me. But just to watch someone who's like in their prime, this is like, Michael Jordan in his 5th year. You know what I mean? It's like he's still got a lot to do, a lot of space left. But like, you're like, I'm witnessing a great comedian. He was like floored me. So fun.
And we can apply that to visual art too. If you make a painting, leave some space where you don't fulfill what you planned, but like find things in the moment. You could have an overall vision, but be willing to have your vision be different at the end than you started. For any sculpture, any work of art. And you could apply it to workouts too, right? Or teaching a class. Do you find, I don't know, someone complains about a pain in their shoulder, and you think, let's focus on everybody. Let's talk about our shoulders or something like that.
Totally. 100%. Yeah. And it's like, okay, how can we get this, how can we uncover this new experience for all of us somehow? And I think that's the joy of creation, right? And you can do it, again, through any kind of art. You can do it through a class. You can do it, teaching art, teaching, group X fitness or whatever it is. So it's like, it's just so fun to discover different ways of doing things. And that's why I'm doing the podcast, essentially, is because it's like, I want to meet people where they're at. I want to know what you're doing. So you bring up fitness. Thank you for getting me back on track. My ADHD takes me everywhere. It's like I have the structure in place now, but I just let it go wherever feels relevant. So for you, what is it that you're doing for your physical health these days? How are you helping yourself feel good?
I enjoy riding my bicycle, and it does exercise my calves a lot, and that's one of my strengths. It's like one of my strongest parts of my body. So it's like bicycle. My body's already
Heck yeah.
It's prepped for that already.
Yeah. You got those Alaska calves.
Yeah.
those big meaty Fairbanks calves.
I could bike more, but I always enjoy it when I do. And
yeah. Well,
basically that's mostly what I do, is walks with my dog and bicycle here and there.
Nice. Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the thing. It's like, okay, just that thought in your head, I could bike more. That's good if you don't let it control you in a guilty way, right?
Yeah,
like,
without
I could bike
shame.
more.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, I could bike more. I know that. Do I want to bike more? Yes. And maybe I will. Like, that is the step. If that's the step you're on, awesome. Just know that and keep biking as you feel good. Have you ever been like an athlete? Did you ever play sports or do anything like that?
Oof, no. I think I played baseball one season as a kid.
Yeah.
Gym was always a class I kind of dreaded, or it'd be a chance to talk to my friends or hang out with my friends. I didn't enjoy the physical workout so much. I think I do remember like hitting a basket once in basketball and being like,
nice.
Yes, I did it. I got the basket.
Yeah.
It didn't spark the bug in me to make me want to play all the time.
Yeah. I had a friend in high school. His name was Brian Lockram, and we had this running bit that exists to this day because he was in band and I played sports and stuff like that, but we were still friendly and jokey. And he would say, "Down with sports," and I'd be like, "Down with the arts." And the other day he commented something like, "Down with sports arts," like, because I'm making these weird artistic workouts, and so it's like I'm joining the two. But it's like there is that division, and in high school it's easy for those walls to be put up and not crossed, which
the
is so
nerds
sad.
versus the jocks. Yeah. I think I saw a sticker that said, "Friends don't let friends try sports." Have you ever seen that?
Yeah. Screw that sticker. I want to make a t-shirt that says "Sports not invested in the outcome." Because
yeah, I heard you say that on another episode, and I totally feel that about art for sure.
Mm-hmm. Because here's the thing. It's all about process. It's all about process. If you can enjoy what you're doing, and like Rick Rubin have you read his book, The Creative Act? I think it's real new. It's a good one. I haven't gotten through all of it, but it's a good book, and I think you would really love. I think it'd be a perfect book for you to read. You can thumb through it and just check out. You could even incorporate it in classes, I think, because it's just such a wonderful exploration on creativity. And this guy, are you familiar with Rick Rubin?
I should be more familiar.
He's produced so many top 40 hits in hip hop, in rock and roll, in folk, in country, and all of it.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And so he's worked with Reggie Watts. When I met Reggie Watts, one of the first questions I asked him was like, "Have you ever met Rick Rubin?" And he's like, "Twice, actually." And he told me stories about how he met Rick Rubin and all this kind of stuff, and it was just so cool. And I'm just fascinated by people who love process. And his whole thing was like, I never thought I'd be an artist as a living. I just wanted to be able to do my art. And being someone in a town like we're in Eugene, which doesn't have a ton of external opportunities, even though it's 150,000 people, it's still pretty DIY. It's still very do it on your own. And there's something about that I really appreciate it, but there's also something that holds you back. And so taking this notion of like, okay, no, I don't have to make it
don't sit glumly and be like, I wish the phone would ring and someone would invite me on a comedy show. You gotta make your own comedy show.
Exactly.
It can be gate kept, and I've tried it out in Fairbanks, Alaska, and I've tried it out in New York City. And I've said Eugene's a much better fit for me because you can create these small events and that they can be a success without huge expectations.
Totally.
It's big enough to make it happen. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's small enough to make it weird.
Oh, yeah.
Eugene loves a weird thing, you know? But I've also had a hard time finding my audience, I guess, for lack of a better word. You know, it's hard to find that. It's hard to find the people that resonate with the things you want to do. And so that's, again, why you gotta love process, because it's just like, oh no, I do like writing jokes. I do like building a new set. I do like a lot of this stuff. And it's not all about, you know, I'm so glad I made a hour-long thing that is on YouTube forever, but there's so much stress in like that. And if you're outcome oriented, then you're putting, I think, a lot of undue pressure on yourself, even though it helps you keep going. Are you more process focused or are you more outcome focused in general?
I think I'm process focused, and I think of some examples of projects I did that literally took me 10 years or more to finish.
Oh, I love
had
it.
An idea, and maybe I did some work, put it aside for a while. 10 years later, I made a YouTube video, which was me reciting like a history of science fiction authors and little joke poems about the things they made and why they're significant. And I wrote this song over 10 years ago. And then 9 years later, I started to think, oh, I could record music for this. And then I could make pictures for it. And then I could make it a performance that's a YouTube video.
So you're like collaborating with your past self.
For sure.
And I love that idea. It reminds me, I've mentioned this somewhere, but Taika Waititi's writing advice to a lot of filmmakers is like, write a script, do whatever you have to do to get a script done, throw it in a drawer, don't look at it for 10 years, read it again, burn it, and rewrite it.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And I just love that idea because it's like, oh, yeah, there is something magical about these ideas that may have a little more passion or oomph to them that you create when you're 20, 25, 30. And then when you re-examine them as a more of a mature, complete adult, you're like, oh, I could do something cool with this. Thanks, young Isaac. Did I lose you? You're like, no, that's baloney. I'm stuck in the past. Oh, Isaac left. Isaac's going to come back. I know it. I know it's not going to take 10 years, but he'll be back. Where are we? Health and comedy. Okay. We're already at 47 minutes. Okay. Well, I guess it's just me. Hey, everybody, it's Rudy. Welcome. Come on back, Isaac. No? You're chilling? Let's see. That's how it goes. We were on a roll, too. We were on such a good spot. We'll get there. Let's see.
Hey!
There you are.
We were talking about the concept, writing is rewriting.
Writing is rewriting.
And not enough comic artists and painters and sculptors appreciate we should rewrite. We should remake it. The process should be doing it over and over again. Of course, I'm familiar with Rick Rubin from Beastie Boys, right?
Right.
And I'm sure I've listened to lots more of his music.
Totally. But yeah, definitely check that book out. I've got it somewhere. It was left outside, so the book is this beautiful kind of pristine tome, but then it has like some water damage and weird marks on it now. And it goes from this like beautiful thing to something that's kind of been thrown through it, gone through the ringer. And there's something else so that I like about that in any kind of like creative endeavor. It builds character, you know.
Okay, I've got a book for you. Have you heard of How Music Works by
David Byrne?
David Byrne.
Oh my gosh, Talking Heads is like my favorite band. I love Talking Heads. David Byrne is like the coolest guy in the world. Another tome of a book, a huge thing. I've heard of it, but I haven't read it. Have you read it?
I have heard it as a book on tape.
Does he read it?
Well, no, but the reader is good. He does an intro.
Okay, cool. Nice. Can you recall like what some of your main takeaways from that was, How Music Works?
Oh, well, one thing I think about is this idea that like classical and jazz are like good for the soul, and that other forms of art aren't, because there's this gatekeeping and there's this like idea that and opera and classical, it could seem as if they're only still around because rich patrons refuse to believe. I could live in a city without an opera. so they donate large amounts of money. And sometimes the very wealthy, who even like sin with their money, like they're oil barons or gun they donate to classical music in order to like atone for some of their sins or to be associated with high society.
Oh no. So the only reason we have like Mozart or Beethoven is because of some guy who was like, you know, forcing serfs to do whatever he wanted for his whole life.
That's an exaggeration. But he does mention at some point that pop and rock are just as good for the soul, and hip hop. You know, everything's good for the soul, but we have this idea that the jazz is this like I study jazz a lot, and I'm interested in how it's both been maligned as like awful and like adored for the most important American art form ever. And when Marge says to Lisa, "No, get away from that jazz man," and in Chicago, she's interviewed and she said, "What made you do it?" "Oh, stay away from jazz and liquor," as if jazz made her a criminal.
I blame jazz.
Yeah.
Well, I'm of the mind, like sometimes the jazz tune will hit you perfect, right? Sometimes you're right in the mood. It's a nice rainy Sunday. You got your cup of coffee. Ooh, little jazz, cat on the lap, watching whatever. Like, yeah, it feels great. But other times I'm like, what are we doing here? I'm like, I don't need this. Who gave this the okay?
Just like rock and roll and hip hop, there's all levels of like palatability. You know, there's jazz that's like so easy listening, it's saccharine and obnoxious.
Yeah.
And then there's jazz that's a bit challenging, and then there's jazz that's so challenging you don't want it on.
Yeah. It's same with any art form. I think about TV because I love TV and movies. Huge into movies. Always love a good movie rec. And I feel that Ted Lasso is too saccharine for me. And I've gotten a lot of pushback from people who really appreciate the show saying, it's not. It deals with real stuff. But whenever I tasted it, it was just like a fake banana flavor. You know, I love it kind of, but it's just a little too not banana-y for me. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I'm trying to think of another like equivalent for me, and I'm thinking of like music or TV or anything. Is there anything that people have gone, "Oh, Isaac, you're gonna love this," and then I try it and I go, "No, I don't though." I appreciate that you do.
But that's a perfect way to say it, you know, because so many people can take it. Like if you watched Rory Scovel, like I'd love to hear if you watch one of his specials at some point, what you think about it. And you're like, well, that wasn't for me. I I would be surprised and disappointed because it's like, oh, this is one of my favorite guys, like, enjoy this guy. Here's a gift. But it's not like it. I'm the only one laughing in a theater half the time. You know what I mean? Like, that's my cross to bear. Did you see Poor Things?
Well, that's what I heard your podcast. You said that about Poor Things.
Okay.
I haven't seen it yet, but I also can I'm the only one laughing.
Yeah. No, Poor Things, high rec. Definitely give it a try. I mean, for you, come on. It's like living in a surrealist painting for 2.5 hours. It's a crazy ride. I didn't know what I was going to get in for. So I that's another one I'd love to hear.
I'm going to love it. I'm just saving it for when I get to have a big bite of it.
I saw Eddie Pepitone this week at the club here in town, and he gave Poor Things a shout out in his set. Wow. I was like, heck yeah. And I knew I liked Eddie. It's so cool. So how do you feel, kind of like getting back on track, how do you feel that your body and mind and the state that they're in kind of influence your creative process, right? So jokes in the gym, it's like, how does your physical self interact with your creative self?
I'm 41 now, getting older.
Nice.
Noticing my body lets me know when I eat too much junk food, when I don't exercise. If the joints don't work as well as they used to, and I see the future far ahead, and I'm gonna want to be healthy for a long time.
Exactly.
I want this mind to have a good vessel that it's in, so I want to take care of myself so I can keep drawing and painting when I'm 70 and like keep writing jokes.
Totally. Yeah, get on that bike, when you're like, okay, this will help me when I'm 7. That, because honestly, working out has almost always been preventative for me. I've never had great health care. And so it's always been something like, well, I don't go to the doctor much, or I can't go to the doctor much, but I can do 20 push-ups or whatever, go for a walk for 20 minutes. And that's almost as good. The thing I love so much, and this, I just sound like such a dork because I'm like really into exercise, and it's like you feel better almost immediately. And you don't have to do much. That's why 5-minute workouts is a thing for me. It's like, just take 5 minutes, you'll feel better. Give yourself 5 minutes of energy, and that's going to influence the rest of your day without like wearing you down, draining you out, taking so much away from you. And so many people think it's like, oh, I have to do so much. I have to prepare. I have to be in shape to work out. It's like, no, it's just do a little bit and you'll feel better. And whatever you do afterwards will probably be better too.
And it could be preventative. It could be inspiring. Like, I got writer's block. We'll just go for a walk.
Totally.
Breathe some fresh air. Look at some new things that distract yourself from the problem so that the answer to the problem can come to you.
Mm-hmm.
Put yourself in the mindset in which you could receive the answer. And for some that's working out, that'd be great. Yeah. Or just a simple walk can do it.
Totally. Walking is, if you can do one thing for your health today, go for a walk. That's like, if you can go for a walk, right? Able-bodied human, very fortunate. I feel that. But yeah, get some fresh air, wiggle around. You don't have to do a lot. And so I just really, I'm like designing classes in my head that I could teach at the Y or other fitness places and stuff like that are like really exciting to me. And it's like, ooh, I could work out with a group of silly 60-year-olds. That sounds so fun.
Yeah, I could see yoga like with a clown nose. Just like first step, we just put the clown nose on our nose.
Yep.
We meditate for a moment, and then we begin our poses.
Yep. I might enlist your help to punch up my workout classes sometime, Isaac. You would have, I think, a lot of fun additions to anything like that.
Let's pass around this rubber chicken. It's your turn to talk when you're holding the rubber chicken.
Right. Yeah.
And let's hear from all of you. How was your workout? How did it go? Any thoughts? Hold the rubber chicken. Then it's your turn to speak.
Or everyone could do an exercise. When you have the chicken, you get to choose the exercise we're all doing.
Yeah.
Something like that, to put it in the hands of people. Ooh, that's a fun idea, is to give people a little more agency over the workouts. Because that's the other thing sometimes. It's like, I don't like this person's style, or I don't like this class. And like helping students and learners feel agency for that can also be a challenge too.
I took a hip hop dance class, and that was so fun that we had parts of the music where we were all to do the same thing, and then there were freestyle parts. Because then when we're all doing the same thing together after a freestyle part, it just looks so cool. It's like, oh, and as an audience member, you don't know what was improvised in a comedy set and in a painting and in the hip hop dance. You don't know. But you can play to your strengths in those moments. So you got like 5 people on stage doing a hip hop dance at their improv spot. They can all play to their strengths. They can all do the thing that feels good for their body. Oh, this person likes lifting up. Oh, this person likes to go down. Then we got some levels.
It's so cool. And that's what bums me out when I see a comedian like who forgets a line and says it and then withdraws. On stage, when you see they're like, oh no, I forgot my line. What was I going to say next? And then they look down and distance themselves from the audience. The audience doesn't know you forgot a line. Who cares? And there are ways to play with it, obviously, right? You can play with that kind of stuff as well. But when you just like allow yourself to the freedom to make a choice that's weird, it opens so much up. That's kind of been the theme of today, right? Give yourself that freedom to kind of take a step in another direction, huh?
Yeah, but I've seen comedians, musicians do it. They cushion the blow. I anticipate my audience isn't going to like this, so I'll announce this isn't my best work. It's like a musician playing their demo for you, and they're like, before you listen, just know that we're like, this was 2 years ago. We're way better now.
Totally.
or like that. Sometimes it's false humility, or sometimes it's like I said, cushioning the blow of I don't want to share my best stuff, because if you don't like it, then I am bad. But if I share with you a song I don't even like, my best stuff for myself.
Yeah, right. But the other way people sometimes use that is to like you say, kind of like falsely be modest in a way that's like, oh, I just wrote this, when in reality, it's tried and true material. So you can lower those expectations, which, it's subversive, right? And a little dishonest, and that may not be your style as a performer. But I also look at comedy as playing notes, and the instrument is the audience's response. And how to get to again, on that quest from A to D, how to get them in certain spots when you're playing your tune. And sometimes that comes with a little dishonesty or performance, written material because I think a lot of what audiences want is that feeling of, oh, this is just happening right now for the first time. This is so unique and interesting and that kind of thing. And
so the only one who gets this show.
Yeah. And that's what I try to do. That's what crowd work does. That's what some free playing stuff does. That's what using audience members' names. I think that's the easiest trick in the book, is to get an audience member, 1 to 3 audience members' name from the first part of your set and use it throughout. Because it just weaves the whole crowd into the experience in a way that is totally unique to that night. And that is because I believe in the magical alchemy of stand-up comedy, because no other time in the history of the world will these exact people be in this exact place listening to these exact words.
As long as you're gentle, Rudy, I could see someone being like, okay, I hate people named Tony. Is there anyone named Tony here? Oh, there is? Okay, sorry, Tony. Yeah. Okay, let's choose some other name to come up with for my punching bag.
I have a Jeff bit like that. Whereas, fuck Jeff. I've been left for several Jeffs. That's why I've got an axe to grind with Jeffs.
And Chad has become a name, and Karen has become a name that is associated with the people you complain about. Oh, here comes another Karen. Here comes another Chad.
Oh my gosh. I saw a complaint somewhere recently, and the woman's name was actually Karen. And the person I was looking at it with, we were like, oh gosh dang it. Couldn't you have just been named something else? It sucks to see that. It's like, okay, well, it's that stereotype or whatever is there for a reason, I guess.
I do play music, but I'm not an excellent improviser. And something I really enjoy talking with Abhishek is that he's also an artist. So we both can like talk about art and comedy and how we relate. So I'd love to talk to more musicians who are also comedians, specifically someone who could play jazz, who could play improvise really well, and how they would relate like, oh yeah, when you're improvising comedy, it's like this. And when you're improvising a sax solo on changes, it's like this.
Mike Birbiglia, do you know Birbiglia? He has one of in his first album. If you want a good first album to listen to Two Drink Mike. It's hilarious. It's his debut album. It's so joke. So many jokey jokes. It's really well done. But he has this sax joke, Kenny G joke about he's like, and I'm gonna butcher it or whatever, but he's just talking about how he thinks he's playing all the right notes. But maybe my comedy is more like, he's like, what if I'm the Kenny G of comedy? And I think I'm like, but really I'm like, or whatever. The punchline is a sound. And I just love that idea of like using different things, non-words, as punchlines. And that's another thing we don't do as comedians very much, is use our expressions or a sound or a physical posture. Oh my gosh. I saw a clip online the other day. What was it about? It was about online dating. Again, so everyone has a joke about online dating. And this guy, the punchline was like a pose for like 10 seconds. And I was like, what a great way to play with that joke. You're talking about technology and dating, and the punchline for 10 seconds, which was getting laughs the whole time, was just him like holding a certain pose. And so it's just so fun to see people get to the end somehow in a way that you've never seen before.
Have you seen me do a set where I use my book and I turn the pages of my book?
I love when you bring your art on stage and like do jokes that go along with the art.
Yeah, well, when you said that, I thought, I don't think I've ever made a joke where the punchline is just an image. It's mostly like the image is there to punch up the joke so that someone listening to just a recording of it could still get the joke. But that's not really fully taken advantage of, the medium, the combining the visual with the audio. So I should challenge myself to write some jokes where you wouldn't get the joke at all if you didn't see it.
Right. And so another one that in Korea, we did like monthly comedy challenges for a while. So like fake PowerPoints or fake TED Talks, like maybe the PowerPoints were already made and you had to improvise stand up to the PowerPoints as an expert, right? Or you could make your own TED Talk kind of PowerPoint presentation, that kind of stuff as well.
Oh, I'd love it. I want to do that so much.
And Max Brockman here in town has done some stuff like that here and there. And I would love, if somebody got a monthly alternative theme type show going, or bi-monthly, whatever the case may be. But I think that kind of stuff could fly big time here in Eugene. You know, I think people are hungry for a little something else other than just traditional stand-up, even though the comedy club is doing well and it's exciting to have that here. I think it shows that there's space for more. Do you have you had any like, ooh, I'd love to turn this into a show thoughts? You invited me. What'd you invite me to the other week? It was a workshop.
Oh,
right?
My comics workshop. Yeah. I was encouraging people to draw pictures to go along with like journal entries, and I was giving people word prompts to remember their own past and to make a comic about something that's happened to them.
And did you find people have a hard time with that, or did they put a humorous spin on it, or was it fairly dark? What
Oh,
kind of?
everyone who came shared, and it was so lovely to hear people's comics. We took photos of them and projected them up on the wall and then let people read them. A few of them didn't want to read, and I made it clear, like, you don't have to.
Right.
Don't be pressured, please. Yeah, someone made like a how to pet a cat book, for instance.
Oh,
One of my prompts was, tell me a time you and a friend together invented a game.
oh,
And I'm always interested in the things people share when they tell us about the games that they've
yeah.
invented with friends.
That's so. You seem like such a good teacher, and it bums me out when students are not like into it. You know, it's like, oh, there's so much gold to be mined here in this cavern that you don't want to enter. You know, like it's a blast, and so I think it's so fun to kind of see. I just like seeing prompts. I like having some of the work done for me. You know what I mean? Like idea generation or starting points are sometimes the hardest thing for me. I'm just like a bunch of loose wires flying all over the place trying to find the
Yeah.
right spot to
And
get
I love
in.
a homework assignment.
Yes.
Someone told me once they heard a news story, and they said, Isaac, this news story sounds like it could be an Isaac song. And I just took that and was like, okay, I'll write a song about that story. That's great. Thank you for sharing. But I love a theme show because then I can be like, oh, I got to come up with 5 new minutes for this theme.
There's something freeing about a rule.
Yeah.
You know, that was the idea of the Danish dogma movement of 95. Lars von Trier and all those guys had like, okay, it's like we're going to turn the film industry on its head, but here's the 10 rules that you have to abide by. But you're totally free, but you have to do these 10 things. You know what I mean? It's like, no this, no that, none of that, none of this. And
was that the rule setting where they like said no music can be added in post-production? You have to have an orchestra on set playing the music if you're going to have music.
I think that might have been in there, like all the stuff and some of them you'll see like the camera guy and stuff like that, like you'll see a boom mic here and there and that kind of stuff, and it's like, okay, well that's cool. I love it. You know, I almost went to Denmark to do my final year and a thesis on that kind of stuff because it's so cool to me, and I just love exploring people's process. But it's, yeah, there's just so much to choose from that I find having some focus, some barriers put in place. It's like how we learn as humans, right? We want to test the boundaries. Like, okay, here's what I'm bumping into at the edge, and I feel comfortable going past it, but I appreciate having something to keep me moving forward, you know. What are you working on these days? What do you find is something that you appreciate and you want to come out?
I'm working on radio dramas that are science fiction based. My idea for the pitch was Future Macabre, stories of the future of death and death of the future.
Ooh.
And maybe that's a little limiting in that like every story has to be about death, but I've gotten started, and I've gotten a few scripts down that I'm in the process of recording, and I'm putting them there piece by piece, asking friends to be voices. Sometimes I can't find a friend to play a certain person, so I'm thinking of using Fiverr for some voice actors for some of the projects.
That's a good idea.
And when that's ready, I'll share it with you. And I also thought, like, kind of about what we were doing before, is if anyone wants to watch my slideshow or like do the writing prompts that I did last weekend for my comics writing workshop, I've made a YouTube video of my slideshow with only my own comics are shared because I don't have permission from the people who participated.
Right.
So it's kind of like a 15-minute slideshow, and then you're supposed to pause it and make your own comic. And if I were to do it again, I could do it anywhere at someone's library or someone's workplace or whatever. But there, you'd have the extra access of each other's stories that would make it so much more valuable, so much more rich.
Totally. The idea, have you ever seen Love, Death, and Robots?
Yeah.
It's an anthology series on Netflix, animated, but deals with similar ideas, right? Love, death, and robots. And so that usually has this futuristic slant on it, and they could be 5 minutes or they could be 25 minutes. And it's just kind of fun to get a wide variety of input.
And someone explained it as Black Mirror, but with animation.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair. That seems fair. Are you watching any shows right now? Are you working through anything?
I'm working on Resident Alien.
Oh, yeah. We mentioned that.
That's what we mentioned earlier.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I'm loving Resident Alien.
And how about, have you seen, it's not The Rehearsal, it's his next show, about the documentary they're filming.
Nathan Fielder's
The
Vow?
The Curse. The Curse.
I haven't seen it.
On that.
Is it a good watch? What are you thinking?
Yeah. That's absolutely a good watch.
It's him and Emma Stone, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh no, I'm very excited to see it. I was glad to see her win Best Actress. Poor things blew me away. Cool. I'm excited. Yeah, I'm on Resident Alien also, and the Curse is something that's high on my list, but it's on like Showtime or something weird, so it's hard to get access to it. Are you enjoying it?
Yeah, and it's for watching more than once. I think it's for analyzing and thinking about it. It's very dense.
I bet. What was your take on The Proposal or The Rehearsal?
The Rehearsal. Oh yeah. Well, it made sense to be the next step from Nathan For You, and I wanted more Nathan For You, and then I wanted more Rehearsal after I saw that. So well, let's keep going. Did he really top? Did he climax? Did he finish his idea? And is he done with that? I don't know. But to see the length he went to recreate spaces was so interesting as a creator, and to think there's maybe never been a creator like him before, and it's so cool that he got free reign to make The Rehearsal the way he did.
Totally. It's just like he is the epitome of commit to the bit, and it's just like he goes in 2 feet, and he plays himself as this guy in such a unique way that it's off-putting, but I can't stop watching. He's just real. I think I did I was on a stand-up show with him once in the back of a barbecue restaurant in LA, and this was before all the Nathan For You and everything, but it's just so cool to see how people, you're like, oh, that was just a weird guy I saw at a show, and now he's like one of my favorite comedians or whatever. It's so cool to see that progression of a career, of an artistic vision, you know?
Yeah, and I've been exploring the anti-joke because of Nathan Fielder, and writing my own take on some classic anti-jokes in my most recent bit.
I believe.
But,
I can see that.
I'm 20 years behind Nathan Fielder. I'm doing something like what he did 20 years ago.
Right.
And I we'll never get there, but just to be just neat to share the same planet with him, and like we said about David Byrne, one of the best artists. So
yeah, and it's so cool to draw inspiration from people like that. It's like
take one little morsel and let it influence you.
Exactly. No, there's nothing wrong with that. It's like we're all copycats of sorts, and we're all inspired by the people we're inspired by. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with, it's like, I like how this person played that note on stage, and I could play add that note into my act somehow. That's the balancing act, is like, how do you make it your own? How do you add your piece of gum to the gum pile in a way that just makes it slightly Isaac shaped?
And I've worried before that I'm too chameleonic and too imitative. Because I see great artists and I want to imitate them. For music, it can be even like, I want to play the same pedal that musician plays, or they have such good gear, I want that same gear so that I can sound a bit like them. And in comedy, we do the same thing, don't we? We imitate our idols.
Totally.
I can think of jokes I have that are imitative of the comedians who I adore.
So this leads perfectly into kind of one of the wrap-up questions, which is, if you could tell beginning Isaac, younger Isaac, anything, or if you could instill some piece of creative knowledge or experience or wisdom into your past self, what might that be? Or what do you wish you knew when you started on this creative journey that you know now?
Just be open-minded and keep on trying it all, and don't be limited to one genre or one medium. Just keep on trying, because they can fill in. Just like, oh, you got writer's block in this one area because you're trying to write a comedy bit. Well, instead try to write a drama and see where that takes you. It's neat to find a song or a joke. Like one of my jokes, I put it aside and I was like, that's not really a joke. It's an idea. It's an irony. And then I wrote a whole song like based on this idea and led up to it. And what it was I don't smoke myself, but I see a no smoking sign at the bus stop. And so many people smoke at the bus stop because it's like literally the best place in the universe to smoke.
Yeah.
And so no amount of signs will stop people from smoking there, because human nature is, you're waiting. What do you do to wait is you take some tobacco in.
Right.
And what are some other like ironic signs that are always ignored?
It's like that bit from Wayne's World, where it says like no stairway to heaven at the music shop, and he starts playing it, and the guy's like, hey, look at the sign.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes me think there's a bar in Fairbanks that had a sign up that said no wagon wheel. You know wagon wheel?
Oh my, yes, it's
So yeah, I'm interested in what are the songs that become so cliche, or what are the jokes that become so cliche that they get worn out.
Well, there's something
anymore.
I don't mind a hacky joke sometimes. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, the material's well trodden, but that's for a reason. People like to joke about their counselor. People like to joke about dating. People like to joke about food. Who cares? Just tell it and have fun with it one way or another,
Yeah.
Right on. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time today, Isaac. It's delightful to chat with you. I really like digging deep, and I'm sure we could continue to chat. We probably will once we press stop. But
this was really fun, and every time I see you at a show, we just exchange pleasantries. We have a little 3 to 5 minute conversation sometimes, so really fun to get to know you better. And I've been enjoying your back issues or your your episodes, and that gives me insight into who you are too. So
I love that. No, it's been a great way to deepen and strengthen relationships and help them grow, because that's what I find I am yearning for these days is strong relationships with other people in my communities. And so it's really cool that you feel similarly. I appreciate that. And you.
And it'd be cool to collaborate somehow, doing some clowning alongside
absolutely. I'm
training or yoga, or what. I don't know what your specialty is, or are you kind of like a breadth guy? Like
I'm just starting my journey in the health and fitness field, and so I think that I just want to make something that is fun and accessible for a variety of fitness levels and experience levels, that can be playful and fun and productive and unifying, because comedy is a lot of those things, but it doesn't always have that aspect of like, we did this together and that feels great. And so I'm really excited to continue down this path, and
that's something you connect, like a workout with comedy is like at the end, everyone should feel exhausted. I'm all laughed out. I couldn't laugh anymore. I couldn't work out anymore. Or like, oh, we all did this journey together and we're better off now than we began. Yeah.
Totally. All of that. It's like, yes. And laughing is great core work. Quite honestly, you ever go to a show where you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so stoked to see my favorite comedian. Like when I saw Tig Notaro, perfect example. When I've seen her live, the first time or two I saw her at Helium, just couldn't stop laughing. And she's so hilarious. And if I could take a fitness class taught by Tig Notaro, I'd be the happiest man alive. You know what I mean? So I want to provide people with that type of opportunity. I want to be the Bob Ross meets Tig Notaro of the fitness industry. Those are my kind of goalposts, which are weird and off kilter, but who cares? So I'm excited that we got the chance to chat more today, Isaac. So that's super cool. And if people want to check you out online or see more of your work, where might they be able to do that?
I have a website, isaacparis.com, where
Awesome.
I post YouTube videos and sometimes art instruction. And sometimes I just draw people or draw bands or draw comedians, and I post the drawings I make there to that site.
I love that. Well, I'll check it out, and I hope some of our listeners do as well. Isaac, thank you so much for chatting with me today. Stick around, and we'll chat after the pod. But yeah, I really appreciate you. Any parting words you'd like to say?
Oh, I don't know. It was fun, and I'm tired.
I love it.
All talked out, I guess.
Well, that's what I'm going for. It was fun.
Yeah.
And I'm tired. I love it. All right, Isaac. Well, you have a great day. So wonderful to chat, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, Rudy. Bye.
Bye. Jokes in the gym. Jokes in the gym. Not jokes in the gym. Jokes in the gym. Jokes in the gym. With Rudy Tyburczy.